Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about for this week are constructors. Okay, I've been kind of alluding to the parentheses, how they've been empty so far. So now we're going to basically talk exclusively about those things. So if we look, I'm on page 352, and it talks, it basically shows the rectangle phase 5. And so here we have our public class rectangle. And now, here's my two instance variables, and here's double length and double width. And then down here, I've got a thing called a constructor. Now it says public rectangle. Notice it has the same exact name as the class. This is the one and only time that we allow two things to be called the same exact thing. This is the rectangle. Notice it's got double len and double W. Okay, so how does that work? Let's actually go to the code. So let me go to rectangle 5. So here we're looking at rectangle 5, and here's the constructor. And so here, do I have a constructor? Oh yeah, here it is. So here is rectangle 5, double len, double W, and then it says length equals len and width equals W. So what a constructor is it is a setter. Okay, and what it allows us to do is not to have to actually use a setter to set the fields. We can instantiate the class, I should say instantiate the object from the class, and then pass it variables that will basically do the same thing as a setter. Okay, so constructor, that's pretty much what it does. It does the same thing as setters. So if we use a constructor, we actually don't have to use the setters. We can still keep the setters if we need them for other types of things. For example, let's say I have a constructor that sets an initial value, and then somewhere on down within the code, I might need to change that value, so I use the setter. But most of the time we use a constructor, we probably do not need the setters. So if we come down here, we still have our set length and set width, so we still have those, but again, we don't need those. So if we take a look at the constructor demo 5, so here it is, it's a public main, so it's an executable, and I've got rectangle 5 box, so I'm actually creating a box object from the rectangle 5 class. I'm instantiating it as a new rectangle. This time, notice I have stuff in the parentheses. So here I'm passing 5.0 and 15.0. Now the thing we have to know is because they are in specific order. So if we go back to the rectangle 5, it's expecting the first one to be the length and the second one to be the width. Okay, so that's one thing we do have to know. So here is length and here is width. So notice I can then say box.getLength, get width, and get area. Notice there's no setters because the constructor is the setter. So if we run this, in fact, I could actually remove the setters and this thing's going to work just fine. So if I go ahead and run this, there it is. Box length is 5, box width is 15, the area is 75. So right here I instantiate it, I create my object box, and then I use get, and get. There's no sets at all. That's because the constructor is our setter. So pretty cool stuff there. Now if we go back over to the book, and if we take a look at the UML document, so here we have, again, we're calling this class a rectangle. We have our private length, which is double, and our private width, which is also a double, our two instance variables. And then I have rectangle length, width, boom, boom, so on, so. But if you notice, I've got set, get. But I've got this new one, it's just called rectangle, so it's the same name. So if it has the same name as our class, we know it's a constructor. And here I have len double, width double, W double. Okay, so I'm telling it I have a constructor where I'm expecting the length and the width. Can I pass just one variable? No. If it's expecting two, you have to put in two. Okay. Do I have to use the constructor? In this case, we do. Okay. In this case, we have to use the constructor. So there's no way around it. So if I tried to do this, let me go back to the code. If I tried removing these two numeric values and I did a save, right away I'm going to get an error because it's going right now. If I point to it, it's going to say the constructor is undefined. I'm expecting a constructor and you're not providing it. So I put those back in, life is good. Okay. If I take one out and do a save, again it says the constructor is undefined, meaning we are missing something. So if the constructor is set up for 2 or 3 or 4, then you have to type in that specific parameters for that constructor. Now over on page 355 we have a thing called a no arg constructor, meaning a no argument constructor. Okay, and what that means is we don't have to do just that, pass any arguments. So let me go to the Rectangle 5 class, and the way I can do that is I can actually I'm going to remove these lines, and I'm going to remove, and I'm just going to have an open-ending brace like that. So that right there is a no arg constructor. So if I save this and what's going on here? Oh, yeah, I have to take those numbers out now too. Okay. So we've basically seen no argument constructors up to this point because we've not passed anything in through those parentheses. So the default, if you don't write a constructor, it's a no arg constructor. So now if I run this, it basically, notice zeros came up. Why? Because we didn't set anything. We didn't use the setters. Okay. So go back over here to my rectangle. So here I have an empty. That's a no argument constructor. Okay. Again, I can change that back. And now I have a constructor. Okay, so let's take a look at the cell phone big huge application over there on page 357. So here is our class. Here's our cell phone class. Here I've got a private string. So I've got 3 instance variables. 2 are strings, 1 is a double. Here I've got my constructor. I'm bringing in 2 strings and a double, and here I'm setting each one of those fields to whatever is being brought in. So this is my setter. Okay, my constructor is my setter. Then I come down here and I still have my setters. I don't have to have those. And then I have my getters. Okay, so if we take a look at the test, here we are. We've got 3 variables. We're getting those variables from the scanner keyboard, and then I create a phone object from the cell phone class, and notice I'm passing in test man, test mod, and test price. So I'm passing those in, so it is expecting 3 arguments for that constructor, and then I can go ahead and basically run the getters to get that information. So if I go ahead and run this, it's going to come up and I can type in the manufacturer, model number. I'll just make something up, and when it runs, anybody notice what I did wrong there? I typed in a $, and that is a double field, so it's expecting just double. I shouldn't have typed in that $. So let me run it again. There it is. The manufacturer provided is Motorola, the number, and retail price. So again, constructors are nice. We can instantiate and set those instance variables in one statement. So pretty neat stuff there. If we take a look at the UML for that, this is basically what it looks like. Here's our so here's our name of our class, cell phone. Instance variable is private. It's a string. The model is the instance variable model is private and string, and the instance variable retail price is private and it's a double. And then you notice I've got the same exact name here as my class. That means it is a constructor, and it's bringing in man, which is a string, mod, which is a string, and price, which is a double. And you notice there I have all my setters and all the particular items there as well. So if you see a method that has the same name as the class, we know it's a constructor. Okay, there's one more that's called the die, which is basically a dice game. So here we have die, and then we're going to see this quite a bit, I think, in this chapter. So here's die, and it's basically has two instance variables, sides and value. They're both integers. Here I've got public die, and I basically have just one argument for my constructor, and it basically says size equals num size. So whatever I'm being passed in, I'm telling how many sides are to my dice. Then you'll notice, this is kind of neat, we actually call a method inside of this method, this constructor method, and it's called roll. So if I come down here, I've got public void roll, and it says random. So I create a random object from the random class, and I basically go ahead and do ran.next sides, because I'm telling it how many random numbers from 1 to 6. I'm sorry, from 0 to 5. That's why it says add 1 to it. So from 0 to 5, get a random number and add 1 to it. So it's 1 to 6 basically. So then so here's what I've done. I have created a die. I have a constructor die. It sets the sides and then executes the roll. So when it gets through with this constructor, not only do we know how many sides it has, but we also know the number that was selected. Okay. So, and then I've got my getters. Notice I do not have any setters in this particular class because I'm doing everything via my constructor. So, my value is getting set via the roll method. It's the random number. So when I get done with this class, when I execute it, so let's go to the dice demo. When I get done with this, so here's my sides, other sides, and max rolls. So these are all basically finalized, so they are constants. And then I say die 1, so I'm creating two objects from the same class. I've got a die 1 and a die 2. And when I get done, I'm telling it how many sides I'm passing into my constructor. So when this die comes back, the object comes back, not only do I have sides set, but I also know the roll. I know what the value is for rolling that particular die. So now I come back here and I say this simulates the rolling of die sides, okay. And then I come back here and I can say roll the dice this many times, and basically when I get done, it basically will show me the roll for those dice. So I can keep executing that roll method. Okay, I can keep executing that roll method. So if we run this real quick, and it comes up, says this simulation is rolling a 6-sided die, 12-sided, and a 12-sided die. The initial value of the dice are 5 and 6, and then we roll 2 and 12, 4 and 1, 6 and 1, 3 and 11, and 3 and 7. So we have a 6-sided die and a 12-sided die, and we just rolled them 6 times. So pretty cool. So take a look at that. I believe that is all we are going to cover